All right, welcome back. You're lucky because I was responding to email, so you got an extra 5 minutes of lunch. I'm actually going to invite us to do a little bit of reading because you've got great resources on your table, and who has time to read them all? So, the hope is that the more you actually crack them open here and think about little bits and pieces that might be helpful for teachers and for your own learning, that we get to do a little bit of that together. My one thing I want to say to you is don't read these like novels, because you're never going to read them. Think about them as resources, references. So if something's happening, you're like, oh, kids are working on that. What chapter is that in? So I wanted you to, if I can get my slide up, I wanted you to see the table of contents for the children's mathematics book. So you have this in front of you, right, if you want to open up your own book. But I wanted you to see that we've actually talked about content from a lot of these chapters already. So you could say, I did the reading for you. How about that? If you look at chapter 2, 3, and 4, those are all the problem types and solution strategies for addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. So that graphic organizer that you have, right, thinking about Adonis and Fernie and Jada, all the kiddos solving problems, a big part of that is out of those 3 chapters. And so you really have a lot of knowledge, very in-depth knowledge of chapters 2, 3, and 4. Did you know that? You read chapters 2, 3, and 4 and you didn't even know that? And so many of the videos can be linked from there, or you'll see on the slides. They might be linked otherwise, but they match that content. And we also got into chapters 6 and 7, which get into the base 10 and multi-digit kinds of things. So content-wise, my hope is that you feel like you've learned a lot about kids thinking around the 4 operations with single digit and with multi-digit stuff. The other chapters that exist in this book are designed to help teachers think about CGI practice, right? What does this mean to begin to use CGI? That's chapter 5. They stuck chapter 5 in the mix of all of the other children's thinking chapters because they didn't want you to just get bogged down in problem types. And if you are reading from start to finish, they wanted people to get a sense of, well, what does it look like when teachers start to try things out? And then chapters 8 through kind of the end really get into more ideas about, how are we posing problems? How are we eliciting thinking? How are we engaging students with each other's ideas? Where does the distributive property come up, right? What's happening in all of this work? So a lot of that is informed by ongoing research and just learning alongside teachers and finding ways to continue to kind of share back with the larger community. So that's what happened between the first edition and the second edition of the children's mathematics book. So I wanted you to see what you have available. Again, this is a core text resource that you have for the CGI work. There are also some other books that you have. Choral Counting and Counting Collections is a book, a collaborative effort with teachers and practitioners and researchers to help us think about how this activity of choral counting and counting collections, I know we didn't really talk about choral counting together, but how these 2 instructional activities can exist across our grades, pre-K through 5, and how they can really help support kids' budding identities, how we think about math, how we broaden participation in math, and how we support reasoning, number sense, all this great mathematical work to happen. And then the bottom one is the Extending Children's Mathematics. So that was kind of an extension of the CGI research from the whole number world into the world of fractions and decimals. And I know we just started to dip our toe into that content this morning. And I'm hoping we can do just a little bit more before we end for the day. So I wanted to give you a menu of things that you might read right now. And you're just going to choose. I gave you some options. Pick one of these 3 books. I gave you a little bit of a starting point. You don't have to read the thing I asked you to read, but if you're like, ooh, what would be helpful right now? If you're really intrigued by the fraction stuff that we started with, I encourage you to read the intro chapter of the Extending Children's Mathematics book. If you're like, oh, I want to think more about counting collections, right? You can think about that. I think that's a nice overview to share with teachers. And the upper left one, the beginning to use cognitively guided instruction, starts to think about, well, what might this look like as teachers start to take up these practices, and what do the CGI researchers share with us about what that looks like? So I'm going to ask you to read. We'll give ourselves, I don't know, 12-ish minutes to just get started, right? I mean, some of those are only 3 pages. Come on. 12-ish minutes, and then I'll see if we're actually really reading or if we're checking email now. But choose one, right? Choose one, get your Post-it notes, get your highlighters, anything that you think would be helpful for you in doing a little bit of reading. Okay, we'll spend another about 3 minutes reading. That was a long 12 minutes. About 3 more minutes. And in a moment after those 3 minutes, I'm going to have you kind of get up and share with other people who read the same thing. So if you want to look back and highlight or anything, feel free to do that. But a few more minutes right now. All right, start to find a good place to pause. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to stand up and find a partner who read the same thing that you read. And the way I'm going to do that, you help me out here, is if you read the children's mathematics book, the light blue cover, right? You can kind of hold up. If you all kind of gather here, then you can find someone, right? Find a partner here who read something similar. You can be in a duo, trio, whatever. So that's the children's mathematics book. You're on the stage here. And then choral counting collections, if you kind of go over on this side of the room, okay, and you can look for people with the same book. And then if you read the fractions one, you can go to the back of the room. Does that work? Okay, stand up, grab your book, go find someone, and just chat about something you're connecting to in the reading. All right. I'm going to invite you to start to wrap up your conversations. All right, you can thank your groups and start to head back to your tables.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here with my colleague, Jess Tufnell, and then we have Rusty and Trish is organizing materials. We thought we would take some time right now before we hand it off to Angela again to describe the system of supports that we've been working on around the ideas of CGI, to address some questions and wonderings you had from yesterday, and then to share a really exciting learning opportunity around CGI that you might be interested in. So on the slide you see right here, describes the system of supports that we're building and developing for you as leaders around the ideas of CGI. We're so fortunate to be friends with Angela. Angela, I didn't share this yesterday, but she has been supporting Los Angeles Unified School District, which I believe is the second largest in the country. So she's been really doing that systems work and supporting leaders and has been giving us guidance around what that system could look like. So we've been using roles, events, routines, and tools as a lens to design a system for you as leaders. So we'll give you a second to look at the slide, and then Jess will share a few things that are standing out.
Hi, friends. Learning is really messy. There are a number of ways that we could continue moving along the CGI learning trajectory and supporting educators to listen to students when doing mathematics. A few that I might highlight are that there are CGI videos coming to the Early Math YouTube channel coming soon. Sit tight for those, and a module. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. I also might highlight adapting the curriculum. So can you raise your hand if you are a part of 23H and Number Corner or Essentials in Action? Look around. You have a lot of thinking partners. If you want to put your thinking partner hat on to think about some ways that we might leverage CGI when implementing Number Corner, and know that we're going to provide some more opportunities to think a little bit more about that.
And just note that this is not a complete, fully developed system of supports yet. We're still building and designing with Angela. So yesterday, as leaders, we were wondering what the learning might look like for teachers. How might learning unfold for teachers around the CGI content, which is such a complicated and a complex answer, because for all of us, our context is so different. The system that we're part of is so different. The teachers, thinking about the professional learning from their past that they've experienced, the learning that they're experiencing right now, thinking about their broader system that they're a part of. It's a very complicated answer. And so really, my starting point in Wayne County might be different compared to the starting point that you might, depending on your context, where you're from. But we have some ideas on how to get started, maybe some small steps that you can initiate in your context that we're going to share in a little bit. But first, we're going to have you reflect and think about your current professional learning system that you support. Where are the learning spaces right now that exist in your professional learning system where you can move some of these CGI principled ideas forward? And who might you need to collaborate with to support your teachers? So we'll give you a chance, a moment to be reflective. Think about your learning spaces that exist right now in your system. And who would you like to collaborate with that can support you in working with teachers? So we'll give you a minute to think on your own. And then when you're ready, you can engage in a conversation with someone who's sitting next to you.
We're going to come back together in about 30 seconds to collect a few ideas. We know plates are super full. We also know that PD plans have been written for the entire school year. What are some ways that we were getting creative with the humans around us for ways that we could support CGI in our spaces?
we are saying right inside number corners, and then also our individual coaching.
So into an existing coaching model or thinking about the instructional tool that you're implementing? Both. What else? Who's the mic runner? It's not me.
Besides working with Number Corner, I also have the opportunity to develop and provide professional learning opportunities within my districts. So I'm just thinking about more ways that I can incorporate this and like what those, some of them are designed and I'm like, okay, and I'm going to tweak this, I'm going to change that. And then some of them that I'm doing like after January, I'm like, ooh, and I'm going to be revamping that. Like I had an idea going in, and so just those professional learning opportunities I'm providing will look different.
Yeah, so refining some of the current opportunities that you have to provide PD to maybe give a lens to CGI. Thanks. Anything else? Any other awesome ideas? Yeah, I have one and then two. I'm sure it is. You were my one.
Oh, I'm one. Great. This has really been pushing me to think about how CGI is not another thing that teachers are doing because they already have too many things that they're trying to do. And so I work in an ISD, so we support multiple curriculums. So I've been really thinking about how to use this work, the bigger idea of teachers paying attention to student thinking within their current core curriculum. So really thinking hard about when I meet with teacher teams and making that time meaningful for them versus just what lesson are you on, who's going to make the copies, all the really important things, but digging a little deeper beyond that to say, okay, so now we have that part. What's the math that's happening in the next week? And then what do you think kids are going to do with that? What are some kinds of things you think you might see? And what are you going to pay attention to in the next week so that when we meet again in a week or two, you bring that information with, and now we have something to talk about that goes beyond copies and lessons.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. I am going to try to paraphrase you and might butcher it, but I think the essence of what you were saying is that this isn't another thing outside of what you're already doing. We can put our hats on of all of the different events that we have in our PL system through the lens of listening to children and refining the way that we think about implementing CGI. Thanks, Carrie. I had one more.
So I'm thinking about trying to get creative with ways of being able to get time to work. So I'm an instructional coach to work with teachers. So doing a learning lunch where, maybe bribe them with, I'm going to bring some dessert and we're going to do a learning lunch so you can meet with me during lunchtime, which is technically their release time, but I'm pretty good with leveraging my relationships to get teachers to meet with me during that time and not be paid or compensated for it. They just get the pleasure of my company. But but then also thinking of taking something like this that's so big and how do we get it into a bite-sized piece that's something, because I might not have a full day of PD or 2 full days to do with teachers or even an hour. So what can I take from this, make it into a bite-sized piece that's something actionable too. I think a lot of times we go to a PD and we get all this great information and we learn all this knowledge, but then it's kind of like you go back and you're like, oh my God, where do I start? So giving one actionable item, like, okay, here's a story problem, do it with your kids, give manipulatives, and then come back next week and see what happened. So thinking about something like that.
Yeah, we like bribery. We also really like relationships and leveraging the relationships that we have to support teachers in getting messy at the classroom level. Thanks for sharing that idea. Angela's going to add something amazing.
Can we call it a CGI snack or a CGI dessert? Because you kept saying bite size, yes, the bite size dessert that you're going to bribe them with, but also it's a little bite size thing, professional learning thing that we can do together. And it sounds like you're thinking hard about what that little thing could be. Because you're right, we don't always have the big spaces, right? But in those little spaces, we can do something really meaningful. I'm going to call it a CGI snack.
Cookies and CGI.
That sounds great to me. I'm there. I feel like that was such a great segue into what we were going to get into next. Taking those small steps, what are those bite-sized CGI learning moments that we can create in some of the learning spaces that you talked about. We're not going to highlight all of those moments, of course. Some Angela has already talked about today. So we're just going to share a few that we thought might be helpful. Angela has been wonderful in creating teacher learning routines. She shared a couple yesterday. We didn't really dig into them, but you will have access to this resource. So a couple that she's worked on right now are analyzing student work, watching a video together where children are explaining their mathematical thinking. They're very short. They don't take a long time. She's going to keep on working on other teacher learning routines that will be updated.
Yeah, so Sonia just mentioned a few tools that come from the early math team that could be used in your current systems. Another one would be to start a book study, or if I were to put my old hat on of a math coach, I might print off a really small snippet or this awesome page right here and put it in a teacher's mailbox. Are you interested in thinking more about this with me?
Or reading those sections that you just read. Today, you read something about doing how math comes naturally to students, so maybe it's just that short page that they're reading together. Another thing that you can do with teachers is to look at your curriculum, look at your resource, and identify spaces in your resource where students have that opportunity to reveal their thinking. Another routine that Angela is working on is how to adapt a problem or a lesson or a unit in order for students to have opportunities to share their mathematical ideas. You want to add on for that one?
You saw a little bit of that this morning, right? You white out a lot of stuff that we don't need, and you keep the rest of it there.
You also might think about word problems. There are most likely word problems in the curricular resources that you're using. What are some ways that we could think about listening to kids and responding throughout those word problems, or how can we modify them, like Angela said earlier, to open them up just a little bit more?
We did this earlier today. You can use some of those blank word problem type charts and engage teachers in creating word problems that are really relevant and meaningful to them and what's happening in the school.
Like we've said a few times, there's going to be a module that's coming out soon that you can engage in alongside educators as well.
Yes, there will be a CGI module. There will be a module around Essential 7, which is focused on problem solving. With a teacher, you can try something out. You can try out a counting collection. You can pose a word problem together with kids to see how they would respond when it's open and they're invited to use their own ideas and thinking.
So we posed this question to you before, but we're going to take a step further into thinking about how we can support teachers in lifting this into their classrooms.
So we're so excited because another way you can really take on these CGI ideas in your context is to join a new learning opportunity that we're providing, a more structured and supported way from the state level team and from Angela. We're calling it a CGI cohort. And so let's talk about who's involved and what this might look like. So we're inviting you as math leaders to work with one grade level team that you support. And you would be invited to support this grade level team to think about the CGI ideas and how those CGI ideas might guide Tier 1 instruction using the resource that you have in your context. Anything you want to add on, Joss, at this point?
Nope, you are all leaders in this space and change agents. So thinking about partnering with someone you have a really close relationship with in a grade level team for a few teachers that might want to do this work alongside you in some more structured ways.
So let's talk about how this will unfold. So you as a math leader, you will receive ongoing learning from Angela directly, virtually, monthly, and you'll get all of those details in a little bit, but you will be getting the direct learning as leaders from Angela.
And it's virtual, but it's interactive Zoom, right? It's not like some asynchronous thing, right? So just the top half of me with you all.
She might get to act as a thinking partner alongside you.
Absolutely. And then you as leaders, you're going to move that learning forward with your grade level team through job embedded ways.
Some job embedded ways are about to come up on the screen, but if we could step out, we could think of the CGI cohort as a mini PL system that we're going to live into alongside a grade level team to lift these ideas that Angela has put in front of us into classrooms for kids.
And so now we're going to talk about what we mean by job embedded ways.
Take a second and read those items. If you can't read that teal blue, it says individual support via classroom visits. So within this system, you're going to have some tools that are provided alongside with support from the early math team and Angela to lift thinking about CGI in these spaces that are grade level meetings, learning labs, classroom visits, and individual support alongside educators. I'm sure that there are a lot of things that you would want to add.
I think what we'll do is we'll go to a Canva doc that elaborates more on what we mean, like the who, what, and how pieces, and what we mean by job embedded ways. And so I invite you to use the QR code to access this Canva doc. We'll give you about 5 minutes to explore it, maybe with someone who's sitting next to you. Try to make some noticings. You might have some questions that you're thinking of. We'll give you a chance to submit those questions to us in a little bit. So we'll give you about 5 minutes. Okay, so we're going to use Slido to populate some questions that are coming up. I bet some of the questions that you have might be questions that others have as well. And so what we're going to do is we're going to collect these questions, and Rusty is going to categorize these questions or lift ones that are coming up more frequently. And then either I or Jess, Angela, Trish, or Rusty, we're going to try our best to respond. We might not have all the answers, just know that.
We will start answering some of the questions. Clearly, we will not be able to answer all, but know that we'll be putting out some communication to address each of the questions that are in there if we don't speak to it today. One question that I see has come up a couple of times: when does the decision have to be made, or how long do we have to decide? Sonia or Jess, you want to speak to that one?
Yes, we were hoping that you would know by November 21st. So there is a Google form on the Canva doc that you can fill out. You don't have to have all the information by November 21st. So for example, you don't need to know the names of the teachers, but you can let us know by November 21st that you're interested and give us some basic information to get started. And then we would reach out to you with next steps.
There's a couple questions in there, Sonia or Jess, around does it have to be a grade level team like all second grade teachers, or could it be a first grade teacher and 3 second grade teachers, or some other combination?
Sure, I think it depends. I know many of you are in schools that might just have one grade level teacher. And so I think it would be nice to have another teacher alongside in this work. And then I might actually defer to Angela what you're thinking about the content.
We'll make it work, right? With what, like the goal is to have teachers collaborate together. If it feels really hard to get a kinder teacher and a fifth grade teacher to do something collaboratively together, that feels a little far, but maybe you have first and second, first and third, and they really work, and we have tasks that are big enough that we can learn together. So I say yes, if that's a model that you think is going to be really helpful for collaboration and learning.
There's a couple questions that are very similar around subpay and leveraging resources to reduce the cost at the local level. We have some plans. We need to get approval on what those plans are. So Jess, Trish, myself, and Sonia will communicate about what we're able to do to reduce the cost, especially of the learning lab at the local level. in the next week or two. We just have a couple of boxes to check before we can say for sure we're going to be able to cover subpay. So look for that to come, but our hope is that we're able to do some creative things to cover those costs.
Rusty, can I address one that I noticed? Somebody asked if they're part of the 23H work, do they have to join the CGI cohort? No, you don't have to join the CGI cohort if you don't feel like this is a good fit yet.
Could I add something on to that? If you are a 23H school and you are a district that this isn't your first year implementing Number Corner, this could also be a really fun space for you to get messy with some teachers who have been doing some of the structures and routines in Number Corner and are ready to take a step deeper.
There are like different questions around the learning labs and what that is. So I wonder if we want to just say a little bit about what that day or those 4 learning labs might look like in the context of this work.
How about I get started and then we all can add on?
Sure.
So some of you are aware that we actually have a learning lab facilitation course in at the state level, run by Sam Kiesling and Megan Cohort, our friends from Oakland County. And so they have developed a routine. So a learning lab is a job embedded professional learning opportunity, and it occurs during the school day. And so Sam and Megan have developed a routine that occurs in that learning lab day. And so we're thinking that for this CGI cohort specifically, the learning lab would be a half day where we would get together. So the leader would get together with the teachers involved, and hopefully the principal also wants to participate in it. And then the leader will do like a connector to get everyone started off, and then do some shared learning together around the CGI content. And then there would be some shared collaborative planning together with those teachers led by the leader. Then we would go into the classroom and actually enact the planning that we are doing before going into the classroom. And then after the lesson in the classroom, we come back together and we debrief and then talk about some next steps. Anything, Jess, that you want to add on, Rusty or Angela? Is there anything more that you wanted to know about learning labs that might be helpful? Yes.
We have said we'll offer it to the people in the room these 2 days and see how much interest there is. Angela has said because it's going to be a virtual opportunity and her work really is going to be alongside the early math team at the state level to support this layer of leadership. And then if we're there, our role would be to support the classroom teachers, that layer of the system. So it's open. If everybody in the room says, I'm in, and I'll find a couple of teachers who want to do this work alongside me, I think we're happy to say, let's party.
Yes, go ahead.
It's for you, the leader, and your team, right? Like it's this collaborative learning. We talk a lot about deprivatizing practice. It's an opportunity to do that. It's an opportunity to just try something out together. Let's all take a risk together and see what happens when we give kids a collection that's a little too big for them today or pose this kind of a problem, and that's the learning that we're doing together. So it's with children, but it's with you and your grade, the teachers that you're working with. That's the goal.
And Angela would be supporting you on the content of that learning lab, like the shared learning and the planning process.
Yeah, should we develop a task together ahead of time? How do we debrief it, right? What are some focus ideas that we might have? So ideas we'll share together, but you all will take up ones that you feel are really the right fit for you and your teachers.
Okay, so I had one more question. Oh, I'm louder than I realized. So we have 3 half days. Are we hosting 3 half days or hosting 1, attending 2? Like, what might that look like?
They're 3 half days, like at your, it's kind of, maybe I don't know what you mean by host, like you mean host other visitors or, yeah. So you're doing the work 3 different times. And the purpose is because you try it out and then your next grade level meeting, you go, okay, how do we build on that? And let's try this now. Maybe we do the exact same thing. Maybe we learn something from that. So it's an ongoing way to, in a short, it's actually kind of a short period of time to say, oh, let's be responsive to what happened together on that learning lab day, and let's try that out the next learning lab day. So it's kind of 3 to 4-ish is what we're trying to hope for of you all together.
Yeah, so it's really the leader, the grade level team involved, and we're hoping the principal will join, and that's it. So the numbers are not going to be high, I'm not thinking.
There are other questions in there that we'll tend to. If there are any other burning questions that you feel will hold you back for the rest of the day, if we don't surface them now, now is a good time. And if we don't have any other questions, we'll continue forward to the next step.
Yes.
Any other burning questions that we would really like to surface whole group?
I know you wanted to do your eval. Okay. All right. Can we do oh wait, hold on, Andrew, hit refresh. Go, don't look at the numbers. Close your eyes. Go back. Can you just stand up and do a little stretch break, right? But I don't want you to go far because I want to get you out not late or anything. So just one little stretch break. And I really want us to do a tiny bit more learning together because you got to do a little more math before I send you off into the world. All right. As you slowly ease your way back, maybe you grabbed an extra pop on the back table. I know it's like I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm trying to squeeze a little bit more when maybe we're maxed out. But I would be so remiss if we left and just didn't get to a tiny bit more content that I had promised you. So I'm trying to hold true to our learning objectives and the outcomes that we set for ourselves. But I also think this will be really exciting for some folks. All right. So we're going to talk about my rabbit. She's really fun. She's really big, and she has one ear that sticks up and the other one flops. So it's just the cutest thing. I need to find a picture to stick on my slide. So we're going to kind of like we played out with the cookies, right? Sharing cookies. We're going to play out this context with a few different numbers. I heard people making connections to number strings earlier, right? Because we did a sequence of problems that built on each other. In this version, we're going to do something that might build on each other a little bit, but we're going to deviate too. So just letting you know what's similar and what might feel a little bit different from what we did before. But my goal is to get us into content that we don't necessarily do every single day of our lives, and that probably you too, but I definitely did not do very well in school with conceptual understanding. So we're going to talk about feeding my bunny, and she eats a certain amount of food every day. And so we're going to think about how many days can we feed my bunny. So I'm going to have you start here. Oh, we have a handout. If you want a little graphic organizer to organize your ideas, we're going to get that passed out. But even before that paper gets to you, can you look at the numbers? How many total cups of food do I have? 6, right? So it comes in a little bag. They're pellets. Do people know what rabbit food looks like? Little pellets. And so the bunny, right, she's in a little cage. I got to fill her bowl with, what am I putting in her bowl? Yeah, I'm putting food, but how much food am I putting in her bowl? I'm going to put a quarter cup, right? 1/4 cup. And how much is a 1/4 cup? Like, if you held it in your hand, what would it look like? Not very much, right? It wouldn't fill up. It probably wouldn't be overflowing in your hand. Don't worry, they're pellets, they're dry. It's not going to be all messy or anything. So is it more than a whole cup? Is it more than a half cup? And kids would even start to say, right, it's half of a half cup, right? That's how much a 1/4 cup is. So can you just spend some time with each other? You have this little organizer that's being passed out to you. You're gonna start with 6 cups of food total that we're thinking about first. And the bunny rabbit, her name is Count, yes, gets 1/4 cup of food each day. And so just work with each other, right? How might you want to represent that? How might you want to write it out? Work with a partner. You can say, my brain's fried. Can you just do it? And I'll talk alongside you. Whatever you want to do. Just start to think about how many days can we feed the bunny? All right. So I know I'm totally expediting this process. It's not my style. I'm not walking the walk right now, right? But I see people drawing circles. Did some people draw circles? And did you cut them into 4 equal parts? Yeah, some people did that. Some people are shading, other people aren't shading. Some people wrote 1/4, like over and over again, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. Some people didn't write any fractions or draw any fractions. They know that 1 cup is going to be used in how many days? 4 days, right? So anyway, there's so many different ways you might be entering into this. But one thing I want to highlight is in whatever version of strategy that you did, or if you look over your partner's paper, right, what they did, one thing I want to highlight is how much each of you had to think about what's the relationship to one whole in your strategy. So because we're talking about 1/4, you really had to think about 4 of those 1/4 is equivalent to one whole. Do people see where that exists in your strategy somewhere? That is a really big idea. What is the relationship between this fraction, 1/4, and the whole? And so we have this unit fraction of 1/4, and we really have to think about, you as adults probably really easily know there's going to be 4 of those in one whole. Think about children building those understandings. I might have to say 1/4, another 4th, ooh, okay, so that's 2/4, and then another 4th, that's 3/4, and then another 4th, that's 4/4. Oh, 4 of those 1/4 got me to one whole. Okay, that's a big idea. The researchers who wrote Extending Children's Mathematics, they've written other articles that are really helpful. One of them is titled something like, Unit Fractions Are Superheroes. Because if we really focus on unit fractions, we can build a lot of conceptual understanding with fractions. So you having to go 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, or 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, whatever you did, that's really, really important for you to develop understanding of how the fractions are related to the whole. Okay, so I know I'm just kind of talking at you. Of course, if we had another hour, I'd have you share your strategies. We'd see all the cool representations that people had, but I just glossed right over all of that. This is the next one I want to have you solve. So count the bunny. we're buying the same bag of food that has 6 cups, but what are we feeding her now? 3/4 of a cup. So are we feeding her more food or less food? More food, maybe. She's like training for a marathon. She needs more. I don't know. We can talk about why she might be eating so much more. So we're feeding her more food per day. Can you work with each other and talk to each other about how you might, solve this? Are you going to solve the same way? Are you going to try on a different representation? Can you support each other in doing this? Talk to each other. Okay. Okay. Can I just ask who's being stretched right now? Yeah, who feels like you're trying to stretch your brain a little bit? So I learned fractions, I don't know, maybe you did, by flipping and multiplying, right? Just tell me the equation, I'll line them up, I'll flip and multiply. I hope I don't flip the wrong thing or whatever, right? I learned all sorts of rules and I never understood. I could do them really well. I actually, I got pretty far in math, but could I actually explain to you or pictorially represent to you or conceptually say what was happening? No. So I'm trying to leverage our starting point as we can draw stuff. I'm actually trying to force you, right? So I love my high school people in the room who are being forced to draw a fraction when they haven't in a long time, because what we're doing is we're actually asking you to direct model, right? We're going back to an intuitive starting point. So for this one, did your 6 cups, they probably could have looked like the 6 cups you drew earlier, right? You're cutting into fourths, likely, but now instead of dealing out 1/4 at a time, now what's our group that we're putting in the bunny's food, food bowl. We're putting 3 of those 4 parts, right? So there's interesting ways that people are shading. If I shade these, that, you're really having to keep track of what's a cup and what's a day, right? I have the 3 of these 4 shaded parts. That's 3/4 of my cup. That is 1 day's worth of food. And then another 3/4 cup, that's another day's of food. Another 3/4 cup, that's another day's worth of food. Did some of you have these individual 1/4 that you had to deal with later? You had to figure out how to stick them all together. Maybe you counted them or something, but what you're doing is you're taking these unit fractions again. Those are our superheroes, your unit fractions, and you're saying 3 of those 1/4 remaining, those get to be put into another cup. So what answer did people get for this one? 8, okay. And I heard people taking some, like a step back and making some relationships. You see how these 2 problems are related? So in the second scenario, the bunny's eating 3 times as much food a day. So that means the total number of days that we're going to be able to feed her is 1/3 of what we had earlier. So that 24 days, is that what it was? Yeah, 24 days in the first scenario. Now we're thinking about 1/3 of that, right? We're divided by 3. We're thinking about 8 days worth of food. So this kind of, like, these are common problems that we would ask kids to solve. And they would start, maybe they even start with 6 cups of food and a half each day, right? You can imagine what is a really accessible entry point to start. In your Extending Children's Mathematics book, right, we talked a lot about equal sharing, the cookies scenario sharing earlier. That's a really, really robust way to get kids to start even making fractions, right, and understanding what equal parts are. Once we develop some conceptual understanding around that, what we're going to do is we're going to ask kids to operate on multiple groups of those unit fractions. So here we're saying, go do a lot of 1/4. Go do a lot of 1/2. Go do a lot of whatever, 1/8. It can be multiplication. This is a division problem, but a very specific kind of division problem. This is measurement division, right? Because we're measuring out these groups. We know the amount in each group, and we're able to measure out that same amount in each group. In this book, Extending Children's Mathematics, they're going to call these multiple groups kinds of problems, because in this problem, I have multiple of those 1/4. I have multiple of those 3/4. And this is a really, for those of you who support upper grades teachers, upper elementary teachers, this is going to be the bulk of a lot of work that's happening if you're trying to support kids to develop conceptual understanding of fractions. This is different than going immediately to adding unlike denominators, right? Adding and subtracting fractions is actually very, very complicated. Multiplying and dividing them, not like crazy 2/3 divided by 5/9, but multiplying and dividing in ways like this, where we have equal groups of these multiple groups, especially of unit fractions, this is what's going to support kids to develop conceptual understanding of fractions. So that when they get to the adding and subtracting and putting things together with different denominators, they're going to have such a more rich and robust understanding of what those fractions actually mean. So I feel like I just dropped a little truth bomb that I know I'm really, my hope, if this at all interests you, please dig more into the book, because I think this is so different than what most of our curricula offer. And so with this knowledge, we're such better equipped to help kids understand what fractions really are and do things in ways where, if you're flipping and multiplying, by the way, and you understand, you can actually, if you see what you did here, you can conceptually explain why you flip and multiply. That happens through your pictorial representations here. So I had one more set here that I wanted to offer. I'm just going to talk you through these. Okay, I don't want you to solve, but so where this one gets, do you notice what's the same thing? The 3/4 is the same. Okay, so you can even look back at your representation of 3/4. If I gave you 3 cups and 3/4, you'd be able to answer that from your picture probably, right? Instead of 8 days, now we're at 4 days. So you have the 3 cups already. Those are done. What's tricky now is you have this leftover. You have this 1/2 cup of leftover food. So maybe you can say that's extra. You can maybe say the last day she goes on a diet. Kids have written that on papers, kid you not. Or, right, those of you who are really going to geek out about this, I'm not going to give you enough time to do that yet. You can think about how much of that last day is half a cup of food. And it's not going to be an answer that you expect with these numbers, by the way. So that's an option. I kind of want to leave that for you. I don't really have time for you to dig into that, but I'm going to invite you to think about where you might explore that with others. A different number set that you might try has this, and I know the numbers are getting way crazy, right? We're leaving now we're barely feeding her any food. But I wanted you to see that we can leverage this. The unit fraction we can deal with now can be a decimal fraction. This is an entry point into the work of decimals. We leverage kids' fractions understanding, especially their understanding of unit fractions, their understanding of multiple groups, repeated equal groups, and we start to use fractions like 1/10 and 1/100th and 1/1000th. This is our entry point into the decimals work. So if you look at those numbers, 1/10, so how many days can I feed her off of 1 cup of food? 10 days. So you can think about, that's just 1 cup of food. And then, 56 cups of food. So I actually want to show you student work for this. So the context is a tiny bit different. It's 56 pounds of food, and it's 1/10 pounds per day. But take a look at how this child solved. And feel free to talk to someone next to you. And this is an example out of your book. So do you see place value understanding happening here? Right, there's a lot of base 10 work. So this is another version of base 10 kinds of problems, but now we're not working with whole numbers anymore. We're thinking about 1/10 as our base 10 kind of a problem. So this example exists in your book. It's on page 154. I really, really like this as a connection to decimals. If you want to put a little Post-it note or something, like you can just open it up, put a little Post-it note, and then close it right back up. But it's a very similar problem that we had with the bunny food. What I wanted to highlight in this example, so they're talking about a zoo animal eating pounds of food. The thing that's nice about the zoo animal is you can think this could be a really large animal who eats a really big amount of food, or it could be a really tiny animal that eats a really tiny amount of food. So depending on what that zoo animal is, we can really vary the number of options that exist. So if you wanted to look at this example later, it gives you an example of a bunch of different number sets that this teacher used to differentiate across a big range of content with her students, all within the same context. So, right, this is the first number set in there. The zoo animal eats 10 pounds of food each day. Does that sound pretty accessible? Yeah, 10 pounds of food. So after 1 day, how many pounds of food have I eaten? 2 days? Okay, so after 78, so how many days to eat 78 pounds of food? It's actually 7 whole days will get me to 70 pounds of food, and then what? Now we can talk about, is it 8/10 of a pound, 8/10 of a day, or 7.8 days, right? If we're thinking kind of an equal rate happening. So, but this is a base 10 version, like really operating off of our use of tens. I could have done this with even bigger numbers, right? Again, building groups and groups of tens. I might start to think what we just did earlier, 1/10, right? And 6 pounds of food, 1/10 and 56 pounds of food. maybe I get into 1/10 and my pounds of food is 45 and 1/10, right? We can think about where we're starting to make things a little bit more complicated. And then here's one last example. The computer wouldn't even let me make that as a fraction, but 1/10 pound of food each day, and I have some big amount and 62 hundredths. So we can think about what the relationship is to the, so I'm not asking you to solve all this. I know I've maxed you out. It's the afternoon. But I just wanted you to see, especially because so many teachers wonder how CGI helps me with upper elementary. This work allows us to get into such meaningful understanding of fractions and decimals that are really going to support all of the other mathematical work that we're asking children in the upper elementary years. And so again, it just starts with stories and contexts, and it's us being thoughtful and strategic about the kinds of numbers that we're choosing, because these aren't just randomly choosing crazy decimal numbers and such to operate on. This is saying what are numbers in the 1/10, the tens, the 1/10s, the 100ths that we can invite children to operate on, and how is that going to support their developing understanding of fractions and decimals. All right, can you just spend 30 seconds, tell someone next to you what's one thing you got out of this afternoon around zoo animals and rabbits? Just one thing you're taking away thinking about all this. Maybe it was just, okay, I got to do fractions differently, but just tell someone next to you. All right. Well, thank you for playing along with me and letting me force you to do some more fractions work on the end of day 2 or 3 of, right, some long days of learning. I'm going to close our time together. We have, a little bit of an evaluation and reflection at the end, but I wanted to leave you with these 2 quotes. So I'll give you a chance to read them. So as you're looking at these 2 quotes, I'd love for you to reflect with someone at your table. What might these help us think about? What might these quotes help us think about in terms of supporting teachers to get started and supporting teachers to continue a learning journey? Can you talk to each other about that? How did these quotes help us think about getting started and continuing a learning journey? All right, y'all. So I can never think of like profound closing words. So just pretend that I had some and go, oh yeah. But maybe what's profoundly closing for you is if you could just take a moment, right? You've been here for 2 full days. That's a lot of time that you've all devoted here and dedicated to this work. I know they fed you well, and that's always nice, but right, it takes a lot for whatever you needed to make happen with your lives and your families and who's picking up which kids on which day, whatever. So we really wanted like to just, it's such a privilege to be in a space with you all and to honor all the work that you did to be here for these couple of days. And I think I worked you really hard, to be honest, because this is not really quick make and take stuff that's just fun and then we walk away and we go, yay, we can do it. This is deep, deep, complex work that leverages all of the great work that you already have in schools, all of the great relationships that you've already built with teachers in all of the different capacities that you're working. And it's asking us to transform what it means to do math in school. Those are all really, really big things. But my hope is that seeing these quotes and saying, really, to get started, I just have to listen to kids thinking a little bit, right? That's a beginning point. Okay, I want every teacher to feel like I have a way to get started doing that. And what does it mean to continue to grow? Well, that's basically what it means, that you're wanting to grow, right? That you try something out and you say, what can I learn from that? How can I respond better? How can I talk about students' work differently with my colleagues? So we're constantly trying to, within these structures and beyond, find spaces where you all want to keep talking to each other about what you're learning about kids thinking. For me, that's the work of CGI, and I'm hoping that you found that you can create a little bit of space in your own lives and whatever cohort you're joining or not, you know, the different structures, to just say, how can we help teachers open up space for a little bit more kids thinking, and we can all get better at listening to kids thinking together. So you're gonna do a little like, whatever, QR code, like, you can't get up and leave, but I did want to thank you for all of your intense participation these couple of days. And just, I'm so inspired, and I hope everybody joins the CGI cohort, because I'm sad to like not see some of you again. But I really hope that something here is you're really going to walk away with, and you're not going to forget it, and it's going to be transformative in whatever work that you do.
Let's give her a hand, everyone. Thank you so much, Angela. This past 2 days for me have been wonderful and meaningful. We really appreciate you coming all the way from West Coast and leaving your family behind. And we're so excited that you are supporting us in the CGI journey, and we're excited to learn alongside you. And I personally really appreciated how she modeled and lived into the CGI principled ideas as she was engaging us in learning as adult learners. You were so curious about our ideas, and we really appreciate that. And that has been lifted in the room. And she has been so responsive and has attended to some of the questions that came up yesterday. So, as Angela mentioned, we do have a few things to wrap up the day today. Andrew, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have you refresh the slide one more time. By the way, this QR code is a link to your wonderings from yesterday and some of your takeaways. So we thought it would be nice to give you access to that as well.
Yeah,
and
so those will be available in the slides for you. If you like, I encourage you to go look at them. It's really great to know what other people in the room were thinking too.
Yes, as Angela mentioned, the slides will be available probably later on this week. We just want to make sure the videos are linked properly for you, but all of the handouts, everything else is already in the early math community if you haven't joined yet. As you know, Angela is very responsive, and she is going to continue to support us in the CGI work. If you can please take a moment and provide us some thoughtful feedback using the evaluation link or QR code. We're really going to take your feedback into consideration as we're building the system around CGI. And then there's also sketch a link to the sketch credits. We'll give a few more minutes for everyone to fill out the evaluation form. We have about 20 responses so far. We'll give you a couple more minutes, and then we have some goodies to give away. Trish will support us in that process.
Maybe. There I am. Okay. Over here, we have piles of goodies. The piles consist of stacks of the 3 books that you received, a couple of the Learning Together books with some memory mats. There are the manipulatives that were on your tables that you all used. Instead of bringing them to our basements, we're sending them back to you. You're going to give them to an educator who can use them, or if you're an educator, you're going to take them with you. And then over here is all of the base 10 blocks that were in the room, because that felt like the right quantity for a classroom. So when we call, I'm going to call a number, a random number generated. You must be present to win. We're not shipping these things to the people that are not here anymore. Nick is going to, he's got you all numbered off. He's going to call your name. So if you would efficiently head over here, pick whatever it is you'd like. There's a bag to put the stuff in, and then head back. They're all on piles. Nick, number 1
Ready.
is number 8.
Number 8 is Robin Stark Grable.
Our second friend is number 11.
Number 11 is Angela Elmblad.
Angela's not here. Number 27.
27 is Virginia Broliard.
She's number 4.
Number 4 is Christine Colum.
Also left. Number 65.
65 is Barbara Martin.
No Barbara. They're missing out. Number 60.
Number 60, Kate Broll.
Oh my gosh. Number 53.
Tracy Lackson.
Tracy L.
I tried.
Number
Sorry.
37.
What was the number?
37.
37 is Sherry Vatchin.
Hey. 71.
71 is Julia Stetler.
Present? Nope. 16. The whole stack.
Number 16, Megan Callison.
Yay. Number 40.
Number 40, John Helinski.
Number 67.
67, Julie Bingaman.
Number 4. I think we already called that one.
We did.
Number 41.
41, Adrian Hansard.
Number 28.
28, Kelsey Kane.
Number 32.
32, Dana Gosen.
Number 38.
38, Jacqueline Felker.
43.
43, Will Lepetch.
I think Will left. 46.
46, Danielle Vossakul.
She wanted those books. She leave? Must be present to win, Carrie. Nice try. 29.
29, Nick Vanderhyde.
There is a set of base 10 blocks still, and then 3 more piles of books. You're taking books? Okay, 4 more numbers. What number did I just call? What is Nick?
29.
Oh, shoot. I didn't draw enough numbers. 51.
51, Kim Fox.
Also not present. 72.
Thuyen Kazor.
Yay.
Did I get it right?
No. 62.
62, Sarah Hanna.
Are there any classroom teachers remaining in the room that did not receive a prize? 1, 2. 2 of you, come on up and pick a prize. 3. 2. Sorry, 2. We're going to have to duke it out. Someone find some stickers or something. You're okay? Okay. There's a book and then manipulatives for the last 2. Were you a classroom teacher as well? Come on. That's okay. Do you want to take the book? There we go. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your thinking and all the work you did over the last couple of days. We look forward to continuing to connect. Happy Halloween.